Hi everyone, it's Summer with Astaria Sen, and today I want to do a book review on a book that I'm pretty sure the Fae encouraged into my library and for me to read, because I connected with this book in a way that I was not expecting, and I experienced things through this book that kind of floored me, and I'm going to tell you all about that. It's a memoir by a lady named Signe Pipe, and it's called Fairy Tale. Signe takes a 3-month journey to find and connect to fairies. And she goes through Mexico, she goes to Ireland, she goes to Isle of Man, she goes up into the Highlands. She even goes to the place the Reverend Robert Kirk passed away, and the place that he lived. And it was so enchanting to read her story, to experience through her eyes the kind of things that she found and connected, and how she connected. And I learned a lot too. A lot of things I mean, some of these things I've put together myself, but I don't hear people talk about very often. And this book is recommended in some circles, fairy circles, for a book to read. It's unique. It gives practical ways that she has gone through and experienced things, and she's telling you to the best of her ability. And it was like I was doing the experience too, not because of the way that she read it, but because I'm going through some of the same things. I resonated with this on a soul level of things that I am experiencing with Fae, how I view that experience. I started bawling in this book, not because of anything sad, not because anything horrible happens or anything like that, but because of my connection with what she was saying, what she was experiencing. And I was like, oh my God, this is happening to me. You know what I mean? Like, holy cow, it blew me away. She goes and she talks to all sorts of people. She talks to the Frouds, Brian and Wendy Froud. She talks to other well-known fairy people in like Ireland and the Highlands and in the Isle of Man. She has experiences that you can't experience unless you literally go over there and experience it, just because of the way that the enchantment or magic or Fae energy is in these areas. It's so concentrated. It's so very old and there, you know. It's not something I'm going to experience the same way here in the US, especially out here on the prairie, but I am experiencing some of them, which is what just, I mean, it just, yeah, wow. I definitely enjoyed the book as a writing whole. She writes really well. It's very down-to-earth writing. She's a skeptic in search of, and she's connecting dots and trying to find her way through it. She's from the States, okay? She grew up in the States, and her father was, he was very much into nature, which I think encouraged her nature stuff. And I really just loved hearing her story. And I feel like when we are in search of fairy, folklore is only part of it, right? There's experiences people have. There's a lot of folklore that just comes from the past. And if we stay in the past, we don't move forward in the future. You're looking at things from the 1800s, 1910, and many, many things have happened since then. Many, many new experiences, many, many more stories have come about from people who've experienced things through fairy. And I think that we should explore that too, not just the stories of the past, but the stories of what's happening now, or what was happening 10 years ago, like in this book, you know? And we find ourselves connecting more to these people because it's more modern, right? It doesn't mean that we can't find the stuff through the folklore, because we absolutely can. We can find all sorts of stuff through the folklore. And it is always being reanalyzed and rethought out and re-experienced in different ways by other people, you know, that really, really dive into any kind of folklore with their PhDs, and that's what they do for a living, you know. They translate and work through stories, but this is a real person that's talking about a real experience that's within our time frame, within our actual lifetime. And I do talk to people about fairies, but a lot of people are like, roll their eyes at me, or just, you know, they kind of just, yeah, okay. You know, they're just kind of placating me. And I don't really get a lot of real stories that they've had. My grandmother shares them with me when she has them. But this was a very unique experience. And I'd highly recommend that if you are interested in Fae, if you are a skeptic, if you are just getting started and you're trying to figure out how to explore and stuff like that, give this book a try. And even if you've already connected to the Fae, still read this book, because there were things in this book that I had no idea about. Some of it I did. And some of the things I experienced within the book were phenomenal. Like when she went to Mexico and found Fae in Mexico, because I went to Mexico when I was 40 and I didn't even think about Fae. I was thinking about the Mayans, and I went to the Mayan ruins and I had experiences there where I could literally, like if I closed my eyes, I could see the people. Okay, I don't know how to explain that, but I felt them and I saw them. I saw what they were wearing. I saw how tall they were. We weren't allowed to go in the buildings, but I can tell you what some of the stuff in the buildings were just by closing my eyes. And she has an experience. She didn't go on like this big tour like I did. What she did is she did something more local. And so she got involved in local lore and found something called an alux. And it's actually spelled A-L-U-X, okay? And these are a little bit more on the darker side of Fae, and they're the Mexican, basically the Mexican version of it, or Mexico version, not Mexican, but Mexico. Sorry about that. But it's this idea of a spiritual being, right, that's connected to the land, and they connect themselves to people. And the people in Mexico even make little like stick dolls or whatever about these, and it's really interesting. I want to do more research on that because I'm very curious. So I'm going to find more research about that and see what I can find out, because I'm just so curious. And I've been to Mexico, and it was a connection there that I didn't even consider. I didn't even know how to consider it until I read this book. And then she talks about her connections and how she leaves offerings and how that kind of just came about naturally. This book, I'm telling you, like the fairies must have just slipped this right into my hands and told me, hey, you can read this. And I just listened, because the stuff that she goes through, I'm not even joking. I'm experiencing some of these things. I've experienced some of these things, and not in the same ways as her, but in enough of the same energy-wise way that I connected and just, soul level, heart to heart, oh my God, kind of feeling. And I don't know. I'm probably going to read this book 2 or 3 more times just to get more information. I've got tons of information in here and quotes that I have set out. And one of my favorite ones I'll share with you is it's the idea of what's reality and what is imagination. And she's talking to one of her friends about Fae and like, how do you know what's real and how do you know what's not real? And here's the conversation. It's really short. She says, what's the difference, you think, between imagination and reality? And her friend literally looks at her and says, perspective. And that is so true. Like it resonates on a truth level, oh gosh, in so many ways, because our perception, the things we experience, our intuition, the things we're listening to inside of our bodies, because our bodies are these big giant receptors, okay? We're taking in everything. We're taking in sound, we're taking in sight, we're taking in taste, smell, feel. So our bodies are giant receptors, and half of the time we're not even listening to it. We're not even paying attention. We're not even aware. And that awareness and that perspective of what your experience is phenomenal when you listen to it, phenomenal when you're looking at it. And that's what I'm working through. So yeah, anyway, so if you're interested, this would be good for people who are beginners, good for people who've been interacting with Fae for a long time even. Who knows, you might find some things you didn't realize you could find. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a very great day.